Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast and a brand new When Nicole Met show for you listeners. As always, with When Nicole Met, massive shout out to Bedmax for their support of the show. Can't tell you how much we appreciate it. Go and check them out and have a look at a lot of the brilliant products that they have on offer as well. We often tell you plenty about them on the show. Just to reiterate, they are also brilliant people as well. Now, the guest on today's show, it is the first time we have had her on the podcast. We had lots of requests, actually, and she has certainly been somebody that we have wanted to get on for the last few months to kind of find out a little bit more about her and the setup and what the future might hold. Julia Norman, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It is our absolute pleasure. Set the scene for us because you're actually recording this at Blenheim. Blenheim hasn't started yet. Blenheim will probably be finished, listeners, by the time this comes out. But kind of where are you and what's your setup at the moment?
Yeah, so we have not long arrived, actually, at Blenheim. I've got 3 lovely 8-year-olds in the 8-9-year-old class in their first 4-star short. So very exciting, very new for them, but sort of, not coming here with huge expectations. I just want them to kind of see the world of the big parties and have a nice time. And so we've arrived already. 2 of them are doing dressage tomorrow and 1 on Friday. So we just want them to kind of find their feet, and they seem very happy. They're munching away at the grass in their stables. And so lots for them to see and learn about. But they had quite a good run at Ballet and Dennis in the spring. And then, I've been kind of building them up to this. So they're sort of hopefully future stars that I'm just kind of getting mileage on and, letting them enjoy the big party for the first time. So
I was going to say, exposure to Blenheim for the first time is kind of that monumental moment in a young horse's career as they go to that sort of first big opportunity to really get experience of that kind of setup and atmosphere and crowds and the main arena in front of the palace and everything else. Before we go on to kind of talk about this year in a little bit more detail, take us back to the kind of your childhood and where your love of horses first came from.
Yeah, so I grew up on family farm, actually. Grew up on very naughty ponies. My mum, loved her hunting and pony club and eventing, and my dad as well. He actually evented to quite a high level. He actually did do Blenheim many years ago.
Okay.
So I kind of got it in my blood, and they're both great at producing young horses. They've always loved breeding. My mum actually passed away about 9 years ago now, so kind of flying the flag for her, really. Yeah, so they introduced me to riding very naughty horses, and kind of producing them from the bottom up, really. I had a very naughty little pony called Jigsaw Puzzle who he would actually drag the saddle down his neck in order to reach the grass with me attached. And if he couldn't do that, he tended to get down and roll on me quite a lot. So he had a great buck, lots of naughty tricks, but he taught me to try and sit most things. We loved coloured ponies, so we had quite a few. We had Jigsaw Puzzle and Indiana Jones and Murphy's Law, and lots of coloured ones. My mum and dad, weren't those that bought me the easiest of ponies, but I think they taught me a lot, just not often winning. We won a lot of Smarties for being the one that fell off the most. things like that. So not a particularly glamorous start to my career, but I learned a lot and had great fun. And then we got a sort of young horse I produced who was a 5-year-old who was also quite naughty, and then got started to produce some really nice ones. And so I love that side of it, starting them from scratch. It's the most rewarding journey. I love it.
Is that still something that actually you do a huge amount of now, is bringing them through from the youngsters?
Yeah, a lot. The 3 I've got here, I've had from day dot pretty much. Casper, who's called Headley's Coyote, I bought as a foal actually from Jules Stiller at Headley Stud. So literally picked him up as a baby. And then Kevin, who's Contendro, I bought with his co-owner as a 3-year-old just backed. And then Capriccio, who is owned by Syndicate, I bought with actually the owner of Carrie and Bobby Boy, she found him through a dealer that she'd bought Bobby from. So, and yeah, he was a 4-year-old, very green, very raw. But I love that side of it, producing them from nothing. And I feel, you know them inside and out. And I love that partnership that you build up with them. And, it's an expensive sport. So unfortunately, I don't have the budget to buy made horses. So I make them sort of thing. And actually, I love what it produces, in terms of, like I said, partnership. I think, they've learned to trust me and I trust them. And I try and just get all the, foundation and have them enjoy it from day dot, really. And I love that side of things. And I've got one I bred, actually, Scotch on the Rocks, who is hopefully heading to Le Lion in a month or so, who, I bred. So we've had him from day dot. So, yeah, it's really special when you look back on the foal pictures and there's something at their big parties. So.
It's an amazing kind of progression up the levels as well. And actually, I was going to ask, and I'm pretty certain that you're going to tell me that there is no connection. The K's, the Capriccio and Contendro, that's just a coincidence. There's no K connection.
It is. Yeah, it's just, I think actually it's probably to do with their passports. KWPN, I think they have to have the same letter per year. So because so the Contendro horse, I actually chose the name because his breeder hadn't yet formally named him, and he's obviously by Contendro. So we went with the K, and Capriccio. I think purely they've started with the same letter just because they're both born in the same year. So
there you go, listeners. If you thought the same as me, that answers your question for you. So where did falling off naughty ponies, winning lots of Smarties, turn into actually wanting to be a full-time event rider?
Well, I always wanted to. I mean, my pony Murphy's Law, who we actually bought from the back of a Trade It magazine.
Okay, as you do.
He was advertised there. Yeah, he was a sort of show jumper type. I did the FEI side of things with him. Yeah, so I sort of had a taste a little bit for that, but I think we went to qualified for the championship there, went to Sansaw and things, and it gave me a little bit of a bug for, sort of aiming for the team type of things. And then I got sort of railroaded a little bit by my parents to go to university and get an office job. And, my mum always said, don't ever do it as a job, do it as a hobby. But I always wanted to do it. But I did, I slightly got pushed to try and have an alternative career. So I actually, went to university. I started at the Ag College in Cirencester, where I met my now husband, and then I went to UWE in Bristol, and studied business and property, which was an RICS accredited course, which is quite geeky. And then I had a job in London. I was there for 5 years and did my qualification as a quantity surveyor and project manager. So I worked in the construction industry for quite a long time. Actually, Harrods were one of my clients, doing their terracotta refurbishment and quite a lot of schools and things like that. We did the steak and oyster bar as well in Harrods. So I used to boss builders around, and I feel like I bossed a few people about. But my husband says it's when I learnt how to argue a point.
Good life skill.
So I love the spreadsheet and constantly in front of a computer, but I have to say, always slightly watching the clock and, just really, really just wanted to be back home riding. And I kept riding a bit, but we had a homebred Wizard of Oz who my parents and I kept going through while I was in London. And then, I just sort of produced some and sold some and did a little bit from the side. And then my husband and I moved back to Wiltshire. My mum wasn't that well, so we decided to move back to Wiltshire, and I got a job in rural planning. So I kind of then got the idea for getting planning permission for a yard and building some stables on the farm and getting planning permission for a house and kind of settle that up. So actually 8 years ago now, we built my yard. So we've been up and running for a while now and built a house on site. And so I then gave up the planning job and went full time with the eventing. So we've got about 40 stables on the yard and 2 or 3 different riders, and so it's a really fun base with lovely people. Molly Summerland is based with us. We've got a lovely group of people, and you're never lonely there, which is really nice. So.
I love that the application of the education that your parents had sent you off to do actually has come in so useful of kind of building the eventing career as well. What was that jump like, having been, working in London, to actually then just taking the plunge and setting up your own yard and running that as a business? Was that a relatively straightforward thing, or was it quite hard?
I'd say there have been some tough lessons to learn. It's a really, really tough industry. It's a tough sport. There's a lot of highs and lows, all of which we all experience, I think. It is difficult. It's difficult financially to make it work, and, you end up working some silly hours and 7 days a week, sometimes 8. So it's sort of, I think it's a little bit trial and error on getting the business to operate, but also being able to keep hold of nice horses, because the thing is, you create a lot of value in these horses as you produce them, and then there sort of comes a pressure to sell them, and, it would lighten the financial load, I guess, to do that. But then also you tell yourself why you do it is to, get to these big parties. And so, it's a difficult one to balance, I find, but, trying to get better as I go along with it. And, actually found trying to do less. I've got to the point where I've had 16 horses in work, and you don't sit down for the day, and and things have changed a little bit since I've had my little boy Max. I've wanted to try and balance that a bit better, and I also had quite a bad fall earlier this season where I was badly knocked out. I was knocked out for about 10 minutes. Had a stop breathing, had a seizure, and then suffered quite badly from post-concussion syndrome, which I didn't really know was a thing until it happened. But apparently I asked the same questions many, many times. And that just made me look a bit more at what I was doing and try and just actually scale it down to just really nice horses and lovely people around me. And, it's just so important to have a good team and lovely horses and why you're doing it, really. So I've kind of had a bit of a wake-up call this year, which I think was horrible to happen, but no bad thing in the long term. So
how did you find coming back from that fall?
I had a lot of very good persuasive people around me who forced me to take it slowly, which I think was a really good thing, because the temptation is a mid-season, I've got to get back on, but also I have such a lovely small team of horses that I've produced from scratch, and I was so aware of not pushing them before I fully knew I was back riding well. So I actually really took my time at home, and Molly helped me a lot, and my trainer Olivia Oakley riding, and Lewis Carrier. I had a great team behind me, kind of helping keep the horses going while I was riding at home, but didn't want to rush back to competing until I was ready. And Lissy Hawker actually took my the one I'd had the fall on to do a nice little novice and have a nice time, and my young, slightly sharp one, Scotty, who she took it, kept him going out so he was seeing the world, but actually the others I felt didn't need to go out doing lots. So, and then I made sure I was kind of under coaching of Yogi and Dicky to, get my eye back in slowly. And then, came back out, and they've been going amazingly well. So I've been really chuffed with how they've come back. And, it's one of those seasons where we haven't done loads on paper, but the horses have been up and running and progressing and learning their flying changes. And, we've kind of been, pedaling furiously behind the scenes kind of thing. Yeah, and then I've come back feeling, really confident and happy with how I was riding. So that was
sometimes
good. And then we were off to Burley.
I know, and then Burley came back, which happened pretty quickly after sort of the comeback of the fall. But sometimes the kind of enforced break for the horses, actually, when they're still ticking over at home, is never quite. It's never a bad thing when you start to actually having done it. And plenty of people have kind of gone, actually, they've really come on for it, because we're all, the calendar is the calendar, and you've got targets and everything else, but actually taking the pressure off, particularly with the younger ones, just really gives them a chance to absorb it all and take it all in and come out again when you're ready. How was Burley? Let's talk about Burley, because you've been up to 5-star, but it was your first Burley, I think I'm right in saying. You'd done badminton previously, and
I did badminton and then Burley in 2019 with Carry On Bobby Boy, who was just such a saint. You know, one of those horses, as you try to get back up to that level, you just appreciate him more and more. He was the most genuine, amazing ride around there. You know, he just, no is never an answer. And he's happily retired with his owner back home and hacks for hours around the countryside. So he's very, very happy. And, you know, it was unfortunate the timing with him when he stepped up to 5-star and just made it feel so easy. We were then hit by COVID and lockdown, and so we kind of lost, you know, the next couple of years of his prime really. And then we could have pushed him back to another badminton, but actually we felt at 17 he'd kind of done a lot for me, and you know, we wanted him to finish fit and sound and didn't want to, you know, push him physically. So it's taken, you know, a long time to get back up to that level with the next horse, RDO Berlin, who is an amazing little horse, so different to Bobby, who's a, you know, big jumping warm blood type. And you know, Bert's it sounds really rude, but I call him a scrappy little little horse, but I don't mean it in a rude way. You know, he's a little gutsy, you know, feisty little horse. He's amazing, loves his job, loves his jumping. It's a little bit tricky in the dressage phase, always has been, but you know, nothing naughty. He just finds it a bit difficult, and he just wants to get on to the fun bits. But yeah, I'd taken him to Poe last year, and he'd done Bramham in the summer as well. So you know, he's done 3 4-star longs, and he'd done Poe 5-star, but then, you know, we really had quite limited runs this year. He'd done the 4-star long at Ballindunnis, having lost every single prep run we had. So he was amazing to fly around that, a real blood little horse. And then he had his holiday after that. And then I had, you know, a couple of months out of competing, really. So he then solely had an intermediate run at Aston the Walls. And then off we went to Burley, which was quite daunting. You know, didn't really feel like we'd had the runs to get our eye in. But actually, you know, kind of went there with no expectations, no pressure, and just, you know, with the goal to just actually enjoy that we got back to that level. He did some nice work in his test, you know, the odd little mistake, which was quite costly. But overall, I was really chuffed with him because he's never been in atmosphere like that. And he actually tried, and, you know, I was actually really chuffed with him. So that was great. And like I said, every stage was a bonus, you know. And I walked the course cross country and actually decided with my trainers to switch him back into the snaffle, because I just felt like actually I need him to be taking me rather than try and be too controlling on him, sort of thing. So, you know, and I thought, well, I'll take it fence by fence, because, you know, he is little and he might find it really big, and, you know, he might hit a wall, and, you know, I didn't know how he'd cope, but he just loved it. I have never felt a feeling like it. He just flew and locked onto everything, and he just, you know, amazing. I went direct everywhere, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I didn't even wear a watch because I had no plans to go for the time at all. I didn't want to be distracted by that. I just wanted to go and give him a nice ride and have a nice time out there, and, you know, let him set the pace really. But he actually set a pretty quick pace, and I think was quite on target to be pretty close to the time. But really unluckily, 4 fences from her, you know, we jumped all the tough things and he'd just made nothing of it all. And then unfortunately it turned out he'd actually bitten his lower lip. So we were pulled up very close to home for a little bit of blood in his mouth, which was gutting, and actually washed off fine, and he's totally fine and was pulling me home. So we were really gutted not to finish, because I felt he totally deserved it. And, you know, as far as we're concerned, he jumped clear around Burley with a real smile on his face. So I was absolutely thrilled with him. We all were. So
I was going to say that the roller coaster of emotions there, of the heartbreak of being so close and not being able to complete, but actually being sat on what you now know is a Burley horse and a 5-star horse. That feeling must give you so much excitement for 2024. Yeah, he was absolutely amazing. I couldn't have even hoped for him to go like that. He was just phenomenal, and I think he just loved the crowds and loved the atmosphere. You know, he's so blood. I mean, that horse, you can never tire him out, to be honest. But I thought he would hit a bit of a wall, because, you know, I remember Bobby at the Winners' Avenue feeling a bit,
are we finished? Yeah, and he found a second wind. But I had to say, come on, we've got a bit more to go. But I never had that feeling with Bert. Honestly, I cannot believe how fit he was. We've combined it with swimming and galloping. We've got some great hills at home. And, like I said, his breeding's unrecorded, but he is very blood, definitely. I honestly thought he would feel a little bit tired at some point, but he really didn't. So really exciting about him. Again, like I talked about earlier, it's quite difficult, the financial side of making it work. So I had kind of talked about the fact that whatever happened at Burghley, I'd need to put him on the market afterwards. But then he flew around Burghley like he did. That you slightly feel like there's unfinished business, and I hate selling horses. I love them like my family, so I have not put an advert up, I have to admit. So
is he owned by you? Is he
yours?
He
was co-owned with my father-in-law. So who actually was married to my husband's mother, and he passed away a couple of years ago. So we've been kind of carried on in his name, really. He was, he's just an amazing little horse that would jump around anything. He just loves his job. So it's it's a little bit of a difficult crossroads where, if you had all the money in the world, I'd never part with him. But you slightly get to a point where you think, I know what the right thing to do for the business is, but again, you slightly feel like you want to go and I really want to go and finish one with him. And, what a Burghley horse. I mean, he could just do that once a year and he'd love his life. We'll see, really. It's I wouldn't want to part with him, really. So, it's difficult, isn't it? It's a difficult business where...
it's brutal, to be honest. Like, it is brutal because so much kind of blood, sweat and tears goes into creating a partnership with a horse all the way up through the levels, and they're more than just a horse in the yard, they're family, as you say. And then to actually have to make calls like that, you've got your own family business and you have to make them, but it's really, really hard. And I think you speak to 99% of event riders and they've all been there and they've made the decision or they've not made the decision. It's very, very tough. Listeners, if you fancy buying a leg, give Julia a call, and then
that
she could keep
would be the
him.
Dream. I know, because I think that's probably what we'll explore first and see if whether somebody might join in the journey with us, because there's not, like, it's so hard to find a 5-star horse, isn't it? He's not going to go in and be leading the dressage because he would rather get on with the jumping phase. But God, he enjoyed the job. So I think we'll explore down that avenue first, and I would really hope to keep hold of him because I'd love to get back. I'd love to go to badminton next year, and so we may reroute to Poe. And he's on holiday at the moment. We're giving him a couple of weeks holiday, and then we'll see. But he came back so fit and sound from Burghley that the vets have all sort of checked him over and been very, very happy with him. So we've got that possibly on the pipeline, but I'm just going to see how he feels when he's, back in work and make the right plan for him, really. But he looked like he could go around Burghley again, to be honest. He was pretty full of it. So
I know, speaking to lots of people, he was kind of one of the rounds of the day at Burghley because he did just look like he was absolutely loving his life. Those sort of 10 minutes were dream team. Can I ask, start of this year, sort of end of last year, you actually changed nationality from British to Zimbabwean. Talk to us a little bit about that change and where it sort of the idea came from and what that process and feeling has been like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting. My mum was born in Zimbabwe and my grandparents lived there for a long time, I think 15, 20 years or something like that. So she and her sister, middle sister, were born there. And then they left and moved to Ireland after that. Yeah, so we'd sort of talked about it in the past, but I wasn't sure it was possible because she never had a Zimbabwean passport, having retained her British one. But then actually we visited the country to meet with some people to see what the possibilities were over in October last year, and met some really lovely people and had a lot of help with it. And actually, I ticked the box having had a direct parent born there. So I was issued with a passport at the end of last year, and I kind of, it's really tough because I've been riding for GB from day dot, really, so it's sad to leave it. But I had these 3 horses that are at Blenheim were on the wait list for Le Lion last year, and I think I was next off the wait list to go. And they were super strong 7-year-olds that I'd have loved to take, but it's so competitive with GB. There's such amazing riders, amazing horses, and actually you really have to be the top of the top to have the opportunity to go to Olympics and World Games and things like that. It's just such a strong, amazing group of riders that had to be a little bit realistic that the switch made sense to just open a lot of doors really for for myself and the horses and owners. And so this year I've got a little 6-year-old that I was talking about earlier who qualified. He got his qualification for Le Lion at Wellington, and actually he's jumped another double clear at Cornbury, so he's double qualified for Le Lion. And I've been able to produce him steadily and at my own pace without thinking, I've got to win everywhere. And he is a little bit greener than a lot of 6-year-olds, but actually he's starting to come into his peak, and now he's qualified. The amazing opportunity is I can take him to Le Lion if I want to, and so it just opens a lot of doors of and opportunities to be able to aim for young horse championships, Olympics, World Games. So it's really exciting. Yeah, so watch this space.
It's really cool because it opens up. It's not just kind of the big championships like the Olympics and the Worlds, like you say, Le Lion and other opportunities such as that have become all of a sudden much more accessible. It's in your hands more than it is with, it is tough to ride for Britain. And actually fighting for places for things like the Le Lion, Danger Young Horse World Championships, even Buccalo, places like that, actually it's tough.
Yeah.
Can I ask, you became a mum a little under 2 years ago, I think. Max came into the world.
Little Max.
How has Max and becoming a mum kind of changed your mindset in any way in terms of your career?
Yeah, I think for the positive, to be honest. I mean, I did find it really, to be honest, hated being pregnant. Because
it's okay, you don't have to whisper it.
I hate it very much. But, I was obviously really excited, but found it really difficult, getting bigger and bigger and having to cut my season short. But, also, we weren't sure if I was going to be able to have children. And, so it was amazing to be able to, and quite a journey in that way. And and it's funny because I look back on it and I just felt like a huge whale, and actually I was growing a little human. So that was amazing, and I had him in November, and so he'll be 2 this November, and he's just been amazing. I've loved it actually. I've always wanted to have children, but I love seeing a little person growing in front of you, and him learning to talk, and he's at a really fun stage now. But I did find the newborn bit and him and baby quite tough because you work for yourself, and so there's that pressure you put yourself under to get back to work, and then the guilt of not being a 24-hour mum and not being there enough, and so it's quite a juggling act. And I've been really lucky to have amazing family behind me and husband, and and Max has been quite adaptable to being looked after by lots of different people, and he came to Po and slept in the shower in the lorry. We made him a little bed, a perfect little crate. It's juggling really, and but I have loved it, and I think it has made me prioritize having a bit more of a balance rather than 24/7 doing horses. I've loved it, but it is a juggling act, and you start to nail one stage, and then he's walking, and then he's climbing everything, and he has no sense of danger. So it's full on, and the routines change, and so it's been. But I've loved it. But it has. It's been just a juggling act, really, I think. I've had, like I said, amazing people who have helped, because you can't do it on your own, that's for sure.
It's amazing. I always find, there's few sports whereby actually mums are very commonplace competing at the very, very top level. You know, you go into athletics and tennis, and it's becoming far more prevalent now than it was. And I think support and encouragement for it, and kind of the role models are very much there. But eventing feels like it's been ahead of the game for some time, and it's something we do really well. But I'm always fascinated by it because it's not a straightforward thing to do, and actually the perspective that they bring is really huge as well. And I think actually it can almost make you an even better competitor in eventing in some ways, because you do get that sort of break away from 24/7 consuming horses, which makes you better in the long run.
And also I think it takes the pressure off. You know, it's not just all about result. You know, when you have a bad day actually and you see his little face and he gives you a cuddle, you know, you think, you know what, there are other days, and you know, so I think it does help with that side of things, and a little bit more of a balance, and it's definitely helped me a bit with perspective, and he's real cute.
I can appreciate that. Final question. If we were to talk in 5 years' time, what would you love to have achieved in your career? What's the big goal?
Well, I'm really excited about the three. You know, they're young, so they haven't proven themselves yet at 4-star level, but you know, I feel really excited about them. So I've got some lovely young horses coming up through. So I'd love to be aiming them for, you know, Olympics, World Games, that kind of thing. But also, I think for me, I'm just trying to keep, you know, each horse's individual, you know, progress and sort of that kind of thing. So I'd love to aim them to be stepping up to 5-star in the next few years, and you know, to have a bit more, you know, to have done that a few more times would be great. So yeah, I think just producing the nice young ones, I think, up the levels is really exciting. So hopefully we can get them to some big parties, and also just building up to become more competitive, really. You know, these guys are really talented on the flat, and I've got a really good trainer in Olivia Oakley helping me, you know, actually start to understand having a horse on the bit. And, you know.
Sounds so simple, isn't it? Yeah, just got to have them on the bit, simple, but it's so much more than that. Yeah.
And she's brilliant. She knows when to be tough on me. So, yeah, I think producing some really competitive horses is my goal. And to be able to go to World Games and Olympics and things like that, and actually, you know, try and be fairly competitive. I mean, you know, rather than just going. So that's my goal. I'd love to just go and then hopefully build horses up to be able to go and do, you know, semi-well would be great. But we'll see. You know, it's exciting what could come in the future, hopefully.
A huge amount to look forward to. Julia, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been lovely to chat, and we'll look forward to following your progress.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I'm going to go off and ride the boys now at Blenheim for the first time for them. So I might be holding on to an extra.
Don't blame you. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed a little insight into Julia Norman and her career thus far. Who would you like to see us feature next on When Nicole Met? Drop us a message. Let us know. We will do our best. For now, though, that is all we've got time for. Big thank you to Julia for her time, and a big thank you to you guys for tuning in. Here on the F-Ratings Eventing podcast, we have teamed up with our great friends at Bedmax, along with our very own Spike the Vet, to bring you lovely listeners some tip-top tips on keeping your horses happy and healthy in the stabled environment. So, Spike, what have you got for us?
Well, this time, Nicole, is something that is really, really important, and it's something that people either are worried about or really should be worried about. And that's that risk of your horse testing positive for prohibited substances. And what's really exciting about Bedmax is that they are the first bedding company to be what's called NOPS accredited.
What is NOPS?
NOPS stands for naturally occurring prohibited substances. And those are things such as, a very simple one would be morphine, which is found in poppy seeds. And it's the sort of substance that can become a contaminant in feeds or in bedding or in supplements and things like that. And there's a whole host of them. And companies will sign up to the NOPS accreditation that is run by BETA. And whereas a lot of feed companies and supplement companies follow this accreditation, Bedmax are the first brand for bedding to be in a position to be able to have this accreditation. And that's just such a wonderful peace of mind for horse owners to know that they're not going to get a nasty surprise after they've won their first novice and their horse has been blood tested afterwards and they find that they're positive for something. And that is excellent peace of mind and really, really important horsemanship as well.
I love that. That is so, so true. So important, and better safe than sorry. There you go, listeners. A top tip for you. There'll be more coming soon.
Thanks, Nicole. More tip-top tips coming soon.